Well, hello, that's me again. Today is September 18th, 2023. It's Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. And let's get to our goats, so to speak. And we will start, obviously, with yet another snafu, which originated in Germany, and already the meme begins to basically revolve or spread around the internet, which called after Baerbock called the Chinese president Xi Jinping a dictator. The German foreign ministry warned the Kremlin against using Annalina's stupidity as a weapon. Well, she is stupid, as most of the elites in the West, and China already have been pretty quick, actually, in responding to this idiotic statement, and I will explain why it is. China is extremely dissatisfied. Actually, in diplomatic language, that means go screw yourself. With these remarks, the foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning told a regular news briefing. Mao believes the absurd comments violate China's political dignity and are tantamount to an open political provocation, which they are. And the reason, for example, Mao Ning is correct because, unlike it is with this fake political science and all this BS about democracy, quote unquote, which is being taught in the Western political science and history courses and departments in universities. Everybody has to understand that Mr. Comrade Z is not all-power dictator. The same goes for Mr. Putin. When those idiots and imbeciles from New York Times or Washington Post or elsewhere, or all those political science professors from Harvard begin to talk about dictatorship, they have no clue what they're talking about. If you look at China, China has a very elaborate and very complex, I'm talking about extremely complex power structure. And Mr. Z, while definitely a powerful man, is just one of many party and state bureaucrats or managers who has to run his decisions not just by himself, which dictators do actually, but he has to consider a lot, many, all factions and fractions, if you wish, inside the political structure of, for example, Chinese government. And stating that Mr. Z is a dictator, those people do not understand how political power works, which, by the way, they don't. They have been brought up in this virtual world of the American so-called democracy, which, of course, is basically nothing more than the rule of the uniparty and all those clans of interest, and they use this democracy a shtick, so to speak, to cover up basically what is happening right now, which we've all observed, and which is essentially running United States into the ground in violation all and every liberty and freedom we have as prescribed by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And when those people begin to talk about, and especially Germans, who are really is not even autonomous or sovereign government, they are all lap dogs, and of course, many of them are downright stupid, be that Mr. Scholz, be that Mr. Bach, let alone this 360-degree Annalena Baerbock. So when they begin to pontificate on the issues of democracy, they should take a look at the basically Sodom and Gomorrah, which they turned Germany into. And this is not just Sodom and Gomorrah in moral sense. We're talking about the economic destruction of the country. And this is the cabinet in which the Annalena Baerbock is the part of. And that is why when they speak about the dictatorship, it's really, they want to see dictator, they should have looked at Saddam. He was a dictator, for example. There were other dictators. Mussolini was a dictator, Hitler was a dictator, but point is, Mr. Comrade Z is not a dictator. Neither is Mr. Putin, especially when Russia, which has all attributes of the actually democracy. But this is not, you cannot explain it to some imbecile journal with Harvard degree in it, and or some political science professor. They have no clue about, and that is why the only thing they can do is constantly pontificate. And Annalena Baerbock created the diplomatic scandal because she's stupid. She is uneducated, and that's the only type of people who are required to serve in the modern combined West. And as the result, we can see ourselves what is happening with the combined West, which is being destroyed as I speak to you. And then that brings us to other thing, which is really pertinent, so to speak, which really matters. We have suddenly, as was reported by New York Times for some reason, but I translated it for you from Radio Sputnik, that the president of Finland appealed to the West about relations with Russia. And we're talking about the president of Finland and Sauli Niinistö. Western countries need to find a way to maintain relations with Russia in order to avoid the threat of world war, said President of Finland, Sauli Niinistö. I don't mean any great friendship, but the ability to tolerate and even a little mutual understanding, he said in an interview with the New York Times. Well, I have some news for Mr. Niinistö and for Finland. And that's actually too late, guys. And you know what? Finland will be getting now what is coming to her. And the coming to her will be the basically suffocating of the economic life of Finland. Not because Russia is doing this on purpose, but because, you know, Finland decided that it can live without Russia. And that's fine. Russians don't care. And guess what? If you want to ask question how it all transpired, well, Mr. Niinistö was together with this girl who is absolute moron, and Sanna Marin, former prime minister of Finland, she actually was the one who initiated the ascension of Finland to NATO and all aggressive policies towards Russia. Again, when you look at this bimbo, she graduated some kind of master's degree from some University of Helsinki in administration. And look what she's talking about 2 days ago. This is how reported by Fox, when she's talking that how qualified she is. She's stupid beyond belief, and she's probably drug addict and they are party animal. And look what she says. The task will be, after she retired from the politics, as she says, the task will be to be an advisor to different countries, governments, and leaders on policy issues that are familiar to me, such as good governance, technology, climate, gender equality, and other issues that I have to work with, Marin said, according to the, whatever, try to pronounce the name of this hand-blooded newspaper. And let me put it this way. Not only she is uneducated, you cannot get decent education in the West regarding any kind of administration, whatever that is even. This is not some kind of education. How this bimbo has any clue about good governance or technology beats me. The same goes for climate. She has absolutely zero STEM education, which is, of course, I mean, mathematics, physics, engineering, geology, whatever, geophysics and things like that. She doesn't have any of this. And now let's see what were the results of Mr. Niinistö, including Finland, and this lady who did her job, and she's now being removed from the politics because she's probably drug addict, and she was grown up in the household with 2 moms. So you can imagine basically the type of the upbringing this she has. And this is what we have as the response to all of that. First, we know that Mr. Lavrov, one of the greatest diplomats actually of our generation, and he spoke about this yesterday very bluntly, without any, you know, holds barred, and he's talking about that U.S. waging war against Russia. And Lavrov accused the United States of controlling the hostilities between Kiev and Moscow. They are sending weapons, ammunition, intelligence, and satellite data. They are waging war against us. He's absolutely correct. The United States is waging the proxy war against Russia, and they are losing it, and that is why they are frustrated, because not only are they sending weapons, ammunition, intelligence, and satellite data, which is a sort of intelligence, they also control the operations. They plan operations for armed forces of Ukraine, and as the result, we have today, this is how well they work in Pentagon and in London, all those great, you know, planners. Just for today, the aggregate for September, which is the 18th of September, we're looking at more 12,000 TIAs on the Ukrainian side. And as you can see yourself, the intensity and of the combat varies, but generally speaking, and especially when you begin to look at actually the scale of Russian losses, they are lower order of magnitude. And I mean order of magnitude, sometimes two orders of magnitude, but this is the purely tactical and operational issue of how Russians prosecute this war. And if this hasn't been enough as the result of their basically actions of all those Western super duper pooper diplomats, so-called diplomats and strategists, here's today's statement by Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is in Russian, but here is the statement about Russian Federation exiting, quitting, which is the Council of the Barents and Euro-Arctic region. And one of the reasons which is cited there is because the Finnish chair of this very important council, which worked for 30 years, basically violated everything, all the fundamental principles, and actually sabotaged the transition of the chair for this council to Russia. Guess what? It was Finland. And now Niista asks about being somehow understanding and have a little bit of, understanding and compassion in the relations. No, I mean, this doesn't work like this. And here's the issue also. They will introduce what recently have been kind of softened, but they will introduce this measure which European Union introduced for Russian citizens who travel in Europe, that they will be, well, basically coming, depending on the type of the customs officer and border guards officer in any of the European Union countries, Russians will be stripped naked pretty much. And most of it will be basically the, I don't know, maybe in some cases there will be the even, taking away even the clothes. Forget about the smartphones, let alone cars. I mean, it's a classic theft, and that is why Russia is quitting all those organizations. And again, they wanted, Niista wants now to talk to Russians and maintain some relations. I'm sorry, guys, that wasn't a Russian initiative. It was European Union who decided to do it, the number on itself. So let them die if they want to, if they decided to do so. Russians don't care. Russians really reorient themselves to the basically Asia and, doing very well actually. And here comes the other thing, which is, of course, when we look throughout all this issue of the special military operation, here's a little bit of the news, which are the, how to put it politely, they're not good news for Pentagon. They are very not good news for, obviously, the people in the Brussels and in London. We'll start with this. Here's your Tu-160. It's a beautiful aircraft, and Russians already producing 4 of them have been delivered. It's Tu-160M, which is fully computerized, digitized. And as you can see yourself, the strategic bomber, which has immense range, combat range, you can see yourself, this is the payload of it. On the front you can see yourself stealthy X-101 missiles, and behind it there are still very long range, more than 3,000 kilometers, X-555 or KH-555 cruise missiles. All of those missiles are strategic, but here comes this news regarding the missiles which you see on the front of this photo, which are KH-101, whose range is in excess of 4,500 kilometers. Well, here we have this news, and Mr. Kim Jong-un, who actually visits Russia, he already have been introduced to this missile, and here are the news from the very establishment and very important Russian newspaper, which is Российская газета, Russian newspaper. Here they inform a couple days ago, that Ministry of Defense Tu-160 received new XBD, which means большая дальность, very long range missiles with a range of over 65 6,500 kilometers. XBD missiles has a range of more 6,500 kilometers. The commander of long-range aviation, Sergei Koblyazh, told high-ranking guests when presenting this missile to Mr. Kim Jong-un, and of course Russians already knew they had this missile and they can reach. Well, let me explain to you in the most primitive operational terms what it looks like. You see this, here's the our planet, the Earth. As you can see yourself, if any Russian strategic bomber which can fly within Russia without actually being refueled, can take off from any of the Russian airfields, including civilian airfields, which most of them can take both Tu-160 and Tu-95MC, famous Bears turboprops, which also carry KH-101 and will carry this XBD. And as you can see yourself, even flying within the Russian airspace, well-defended airspace, somewhere in Magadan area, just as one example, the shaded area shows the range of those missiles. You see yourself, total distance is 4,053 miles, about 6,523 kilometers. What does it mean? It means that the salvo of those bombers, and each of them can launch at least 12 of the X-101. Actually, Tu-95MS, they can launch 8 of those. So you can essentially see yourself what salvo of, let's say, 50 or 80 missiles can do and where it can reach. As you can see yourself, it covers pretty much all Pacific Northwest of the United States, obviously Alaska, obviously most of Canada, including the early warning systems which stay there for the ballistic missile attack. And as you can see yourself, it can attack any installation, primarily military installation, in Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Nevada, and Northern California. So that's including North Dakota, of course, yeah, and even Wyoming. So as you can see yourself, this is not good news for United States, and this is just one of the tools which are given to Russian Defense Ministry. And the other one, if that hasn't been bad, look at what we're looking at here. Not only Su-34 is using those wonderfully looking ugly ducklings, which are the what is called front fighter bomber, but now Russian Su-34 frontline bombers have been able to carry long-range cruise missiles. They have already been used in a special military operation in Ukraine, an informed source told RIA News. Okay, we know now that these guys can carry Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. But now, suddenly, what you have, which would be tactical operational fighter bomber, being capable of carrying strategic cruise missiles. We're probably talking about the same KH-101 with the range of 4,500 kilometers, and eventually, because it's pretty much same type of the missile, eventually this X or KHBD with the range in excess of 6,500 kilometers. The Su-34s, they have the ability to carry the payload of up of the 12 tons. So single X-101 is around 2.5 tons, depending on the whatever we look at in terms of the fuel and however they configure it. But so you can be sure that this thing can carry at least 3 of them while carrying other type of the defensive weapons. And when you think about it, just you have to understand the ISR issue here. United States, because obviously it cannot fight Russia directly, and they use their ISR complex, especially space-based assets. They constantly are, handing or flying over Engels Air Force Base, which housed most of the Russia's strategic aviation. And obviously, United States knows when, for example, any Tu-160, any Tu 22M3 or Tu-95 take off. They see it. They immediately tell it to, obviously, Ukraine. But in the real war, while they can see those bombers, in the real war, not only Russia will distribute those bombers, strategic bombers, all over Russia, but here comes the other thing. Su-34, you cannot track all of them. Russia has more than 150 of those, and they are being produced like there is no tomorrow. And guess what? Suddenly, this fighter bomber, which you cannot constantly track their takeoffs, it is capable to strike strategically into the depths of the American territory. Forget about Europe. Europe is basically sitting duck, and if God forbids it comes down to real war, the Europe will be burned to the, well, literally to the ground. It will be turned into the parking lot. So, and these are the news which are really not good for any kind of the basically military planners in the Pentagon or elsewhere. And again, I do not hold them anymore in high regard. I mean, they demonstrated they cannot fight real war. But I also kind of really upset, and in a sense, I mean, you know, I'm a human, you know, I also like my, you know, I do my due diligence, and I like the credit where the credit is due. And let me put it this way. You all remember when Mr. Vershinin, he has a Russian name, he actually has a degree in political science, and he has master's degree in some kind of simulation, whatever. He wrote more than a year ago this article, The Return of the Industrial Warfare. He wrote it for the British funny outlet called the Royal United Service Institute. They don't know what they're talking about, so, but he wrote about, oh my God, the return of industrial warfare, and this was about how much Russians, how many munitions Russians use every day, that it's the Russian industry which produces it, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Sure, nobody argues with that. Then suddenly we have few days ago the Atlantic now writes, and guess what they write actually? They write that actually Ukraine isn't the reason the US is unprepared for war. And look what this Mr. Corey Sheikh, whatever the heck, the bunch of those people who work in this tabloid, he writes that a lack of defense production has created an alarming gap between America's strategy and its capabilities. And here's the thing which I'm constantly trying to kind of, you know, present to you, that there is no strategy. Remember Mark Milley's basically recent article a few weeks ago. I made actually the video about it, where Mr. Milley basically dreams about having their, you know, general staff, which they should have copied maybe if they wanted to, but they cannot do that. There is a reason for they cannot do it. And so the problem is not with America's strategy. America doesn't have strategy. But America has actually some kind of their, you know, ideations and wishful thinking which passes for strategy, and those strategies are written by people who have zero qualifications in anything, let alone in the issues of the procurement policies. And American procurement policies are a catastrophe. The reason they are a catastrophe is because they do not understand how the modern economy works, and what and how the weapon system, how the procurement policies has to be tied in with the actual national defense requirements. United States cannot write real defense requirements. And as the result, it is one of the major factors. There are other factors which are important. The lack of defense production is now the chronic illness of the United States. But here is the issue. It is all written 22 and 23. Well, guys, my first book came out in 2018. It was written in 2017, and it in detail reviews the situation with this lack of the production, and explanation that, yeah, those people basically don't know what modern economy is, what procurement policies are, and how weapons are designed. And now, you know what, we have those people from Atlantic, I mean, retarded by 6 years pretty much. They begin to recognize the fact that, yeah, it's not even Ukraine, it's the fact that United States on its own, under these specific conditions of deciding to fight Russia conventionally, cannot fight anything. Of course it cannot fight. It will run out of smart munitions within the first 2 weeks. while Russia actually increases their production. And now that you see yourself what is happening in terms of Russia's strategic reach, which is fully global, and yeah, that's your projection of power, and yeah, you don't need to have this type of the carrier battle group when you can hit this carrier battle group from the distance of 3,000 kilometers, and you can reach deep inside US territory. Again, as already stated, as my friend Vladimir Truchan says, that we don't even sweat about European NATO. All of Europe is under the in the sides, including London, and those idiots who believe that they can control the world, still being the pipsqueaks. And this is what is this all about. You suddenly have so much strategic weaponry basically targeted towards the United States. And this is a very clear message. The same as a clear message to Finland, Sweden, all those Scandinavian countries which have been sabotaging any normal relations of Russia with them. So yeah, Finns will pay the price. They're already paying the price. And they will have more and more real economy bankrupted because of Russian energy, which they do not want, because of Russian tourists, which they do not want, because of many other things. For example, Russian timber, which one of the major companies, timber companies in Finland, recently just declared bankruptcy because they just don't have timber anymore from Russia. And you know what, good for Russia. Russia has their own timber processing plants, and she better start making, which Russia is doing, her own furniture and, all kinds of lumber, all kinds of cuts. So when you look at this overall situation, and especially with Mr. Putin basically declaring today that, yeah, we're doing okay, so economy not only just stabilized, it's growing, which it is, believe me. So what can I say? Minister, the president of Finland, is too late to the game. It is fait accompli now. What has been done, and everybody in the West have to live with the consequences, including the operational and strategic consequences. And here is the point which I am constantly making. United States lost the arms race. United States has nothing, not even close, comparable to X or KH-101, let alone XBD. There's nothing, not even the longest range which United States may have sometime in the future in terms of the cruise missiles will be, of course, extended to range of JASSM, which I talked about, and it will be about 1,900 kilometers. So there you go. Make your own conclusions, and Russia outproduces United States in terms of the cruise missiles, I don't know, order of magnitude. So this is the point which I was trying to make for many years, and that is when we read about these guys who finally, oh yeah, they have their light bulb, suddenly light in their brain that, oh my God, we're screwed. You have been screwed for a long time. And nobody listened to me. They will listen now, not to me, but at least people who convey the same ideas which I was trying to convey. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee on too. And this is it for today, guys. I'll talk to you later this week, and have a nice rest of the week for you. Bye-bye.